This is a young mare. She just turned 4 years old, and her name is Sweet Pea Rodrigo. And she was a horse that was originally adopted, that people got as a baby foal, or as a foal on milk. There's a part of the industry, I found being in Kentucky, that in the thoroughbred world, they have mares that they discard the babies so that the mothers can be nursemaids for the expensive racehorses. So she was the product of one of those kind of discards of the industry. So this has been amazing learning for me. And I just got her, I think 4 months ago from people. And so the journey goes on. And she's supposedly thoroughbred and quarter horse. And they have all different breeds that come out of that. So for right now, I'm gonna go with Selfseeds stillness, because I'm working as I integrate to the horse to be quiet. I want the horse hopefully to be calm when she comes out, that she's not anticipating trouble. I have Lincoln over here who's helping chew on her rope and who has now just untied her. So these are all the little parts of interaction. And so this mare, she's here learning now. She came to me, she hadn't been ridden or anything, so she's starting the beginning of her education. And so I have Selfseeds fitness as we work, really all the seeds, because I have stillness and the calmness. What is her emotion coming out? Is she okay? Is she nervous? Is she anticipating? Is she, ready to go to work? And then going on from there with the weight distribution and all the other parts you'll see as we go on with the work. But right now, the main one in the grooming, I would say, would be Selfseeds stillness and Selfseeds emotions. Now these horses live in a field normally, so I'm just gonna do a quick grooming, not an extensive one, trying to just take off some of the basic mud and things that accumulate from them being out in the field. I'm not doing a video on teaching you how to groom a horse. I'm just going through this process, and a big part for me is when I take them out, well, how are they looking? How do they feel? Checking in with their body. One thing when you curry, I have a certain feel that I curry with. I'm not grinding in. Lincoln's really doing an amazing job today. And so the thing is, I'm wanting to feel the horse when I'm grooming. This is the big deal about all the Selfseeds, is that I want to feel everything that I'm doing. And part of it is staying aligned in myself so that I'm feeling from a consistently quiet place in myself. And so I'm really just feeling where she is. Like if I was riding, I'd want to know, is she sore maybe in her girth area? Is she sore in her back? Now I'm not scrubbing on her, I'm just feeling what's going on. Kind of checking in. All depends on what kind of brushes that you want to use. I find that they love this kind of curry. I've tried all different ones. They love those grooming mitts, so I'm looking at that. This is a little bit of a stiff brush that I'm using this time of year, because you see all the hair. These are unclipped horses, and so I find this helps in the summer, maybe when they have their finer coats. I would use a softer brush, but right now, because of all the dirt and everything, then I'm just working on that, checking out what her legs are doing. And I'm trying to do it so that each stroke that I make, even though I'm not doing a perfect grooming, that I feel the stroke of the grooming. I'm not just brushing her and going with high speed in the brushing. I'm trying to get a sense about her and how she's receiving, because every horse that I groom has a very different feel to them. And then I'm starting to notice where they like to be groomed. She has a huge amount of hair, and so she loves when I brush underneath her mane, because I think it's one of those things. She's got so much hair. I mean, look at this tail. This is a horse that just turned 4. She will not need a fake tail in the show ring. But then what happens is when I'm managing this, trying to keep all the knots out of it and help it to be comfortable for her, these are all parts of taking care of her. In a way, in the summer with that much hair, it's a lot, but then it's also great for not having bugs on her. So again, this is a moment too that she and I are making a transition together. She's been a horse, either in the field or she's been a horse in her stall today. And so this is a big step when she comes out and she's having an interface with me as the groomer of where we both are on the planet. So I don't really want to be on my phone. I don't want to be having ear pods or listening to music. I really like being just present, present in the grooming and taking all that in as what the experience is. Gives me a chance to check over if she has any new, look at this, Lincoln's a professional rope untier. Now I don't have her tied as a hard knot. A lot of these horses, I just put them in a loose way so that if something happened that they could be freed up. I don't usually spend a lot of time brushing their tails and manes, but I'm going to today. I did put some product in her hair so that it does get untangled, because you'll see how much she has. And I found that I don't brush their tails a lot because it rips things out. But I also know that sometimes inside the tail, things will get kind of balled up. And so I find for them, it's comfortable for them to be able to have their, they seem to like to have their hair brushed out. But I don't do that on a regular basis. So anyway, just a quick check-in. Lincoln, you are really helpful today. Now, when I go to clean her feet out, I don't want her to be on the back of the rope. So I just asked her to come up a little bit. Yeah. Now, for her coming in as a young horse, I find it's important. I want them to gain comfort or be okay with having their feet handled, because you never know when you have to check things or something goes wrong. So I feel like it's an important part of their education. And I like to try, instead of just dropping the feet, to me this is all part of the awareness to take the foot. Can I control to set it down? I've had horses, they just absolutely want to throw their feet on the ground. And so for me, in the relationship to each other, I want to be able to work with the timing and the feel of how they're allowing me to work with their legs, because sometimes when they have an injury, or I need to wrap them or put a boot on or soak their foot or different things, and I need them also to understand that I can put their leg down or I can pick it up and hold it in different ways. So to me, all of this time for us to being together right now is a huge part of our basic communication. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through a very simple working combination of. Now, I'm going to talk a little too about using this rope, this halter. I've used flat halters for years, most of my life. And I worked for somebody who insisted I had to use a rope halter. Now, for me in the beginning, I did not like rope halters because I never could get them tied quite right. I always worried about how the knots and everything are. And this halter, I happened to just find it, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna try that out. And what I ended up liking about it, I have the sensitivity of it, but I don't have all the knots on places, because there's a part of me that's still coming from a more classical background in Europe, where we had lunging cavessons and different things like that. I like that system, but I'm also willing to be open, so I find in some ways this is the perfect marriage for me between a rope halter and a flat halter. But you'll notice that because her head is small, I need to tie a knot in it to get it somewhat right in the adjustment. Now this mare is interesting. She does not like things on her nose. And so what'll be interesting over time is, as I ride her in a bridle right now that doesn't have a noseband, but I need to add that because probably where she's going in the future as a show horse, they're gonna put nosebands on her. But she's very interesting because she so doesn't like having that on her nose. And again, this is all part of just learning this, and rather than forcing it to be an issue, I've just observed it and I've worked with it in different ways. And I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't the one handling her. Okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead, real simple, Sophia. Watch your feet. You're not gonna like it if somebody steps on you. So a very simple thing, sometimes I have days, I'm not gonna train the horses, but I wanna do something with them. So I like, even like in the arena, that I set up very simple obstacles. And on my way to putting them out in the field, I'll just take them literally before I go out, walk them over everything, and then put them out. So for me, I'm doing all the work right now. I love doing something every day. And I've learned with just the idea of 5 minutes, it may be something as simple as leading around over an obstacle. That is something that's working on our attunement of our relationship, patience, calmness. We're working on proprioceptive. So this idea of walking, I've got in weight distribution, I have balance, Selfseeds partnering, I've got in Selfseeds integration band, because she's integrating the stepping. She'll eventually jump over things. I've started that too. So all of this proprioceptive opportunity is also in our how our rhythm is, becomes the endless template of the Selfseeds. And I have to be the one to lead the seeds in order to guide her in the seeds. So I'm gonna go ahead and walk her over the obstacles. She's just come out of her stall. So I like to see how her mind's working. Is she available? Is she nervous? Today's a very windy day. I haven't walked them, I just set these up. So she's going over them as they are. So I'm also, as I'm walking, I'm looking at how is she thinking about the placement of her body? What is her weight distribution, timing? Is she comfortable? How is she making decisions about stepping over the poles? Now, she has experience doing this, so I love that she's walking and making decisions in the movement. There's no hesitation. She's just going and stepping. I'm getting to practice that with her. Now, I know some people want the rider or the handler to walk in the same step as the horse. It's a technique. I don't live from that technique, but I'm appreciating I'm having to coordinate myself, trying not to pull, have her with me. And there's a feel, a very important feel in the line that as she and I are walking together. I'm not pulling her, she's not ahead of me, but there's an aliveness and there's a feel. This becomes a big part of how do we have a conversation. Now she's nervous, so, okay. She listened, I can make a correction. The big thing is that she needs to think about not stepping stepping on my feet or knocking me over, but she's still concentrating about how to step over everything, even when she got nervous, so it shows me that she didn't get so afraid. And as a handler, I need to be understanding, well, what is it that I want? I'm not just doing something. Again, I'm feeling, I'm working on inner alignment for both of us, and it becomes about timing, doesn't it? Because when she got nervous, I corrected her, but then I let her free again. And I try to keep working on the inner development of the horse. So it's not that I'm holding her to something. I'm literally wanting her to be sensitive to me, that like there when I stopped, I didn't pull her to stop. I stopped my body first, and she was listening. And this is part of the relationship that we're developing. So it's like when I go to move, I'm gonna get my whip for a little lunging. She didn't get nervous that I took a little hold, but I didn't pull on her. I just shortened my rope to guide her a little bit, and then she took that all as information. But a big part of this, again, it seems so obvious, but it's empowering them to feel, and for me to be, when I'm from 20 years of ballroom dancing, I was a follower, so I was the horse. Now, to be a good follower, you also have to be a good leader. To be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. And so I'm constantly looking at how is she accepting my leading? What is she doing with my leading? And then if I need to, I intervene and make a correction or do something, or if I want to change what we're doing. But working on the principle that I need to be present in myself and practice the seeds so that I can then apply them with her and for her, so she can be in that kind of a partnership. Now, I'm not doing a video on how to lunge a horse. I'm just putting together movement right now on her listening. Now, I'm not a person, I have my background being more, I would say, like I said, classical training in Europe. We lunge horses. Now, I know there's a whole world that round pens horses. I am not a professional in knowing about round penning, but I made a decision to stay more with the lunging idea because I found that I need to work, every moment that I have with the horse is a precious moment, and I want to develop how we interact together, because I still ride horses. And I know that if I went to a whole nother way of maybe not riding and worked on information at liberty and things, it's a different process. I respect that. But because I ride horses and I need to move horses around and they need to develop a relationship with me with rope, I tend to want to continue to work with that. So I like to start out with just lunging at the walk and establishing the direction and checking the soundness. How does the horse move? How, all these things that we're adjusting in our emotions, starting the work, how receptive, and again, using my whip not as something that I'm scaring her with, but it's really an extension of my arms and an extension of my leg. So this is my leg. So if we go on to the trot a little bit. Good. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at balance. I'm looking at rhythm. I'm looking at, is she sound? What is her weight distribution? What is her attitude? She has one. of a rope. It's a lot of training for a horse not to be pulling, not to be running out. I mean, each horse, as I bring them out and we go through the same basic activity, then all of that becomes. Now, with this particular horse, I don't necessarily want her to turn in like that. I was a little abrupt in my transition, but when I got her, she would literally swing her butt in, and it was the strangest thing, and then kind of run at me sideways. So, in our evolution and our compromise, for her to be thinking about her haunches being out is a step for me, because she's breaking a habit. So rather than, I don't want to clutter it up, I will want it to be refined, but I also wanted her to understand moving her haunches towards me and her body at the end was not something I wanted. So she's come to this decision, and in this decision, I'm okay because she's working in a direction that to me is more positive. And again, I know that all these things become very controversial. We can have lots of endless conversations about the horse training and this and the application. But what I'm doing is I'm just trying to introduce this idea of looking at such foundational parts of the mind, the body, and the spirit or soul of the animal. And so that's what I'm most interested in with Selfseeds. And ideally, I need the human to know what Selfseeds are in themselves before I ask it to be applied to the horse. Now, overall, today has been an unusual day. They usually go out in the field earlier. So I appreciate that she's been waiting. It's a very windy day. And that she's coming out and she's thinking about what we're doing together. She's not hectic, but she's listening. Now, I know in some thinking people want horses to turn and come into me, but because of my, I'm going to say, classical background, typically we had the horses stop out there on the line and we walked up to the horse. And what was interesting was one of my teachers early on, Senor Luis Valença in Portugal, he liked the idea of the obedience of the horse stopping, and that you could approach the horse. A lot of the young horses that came into the school were really wild, and so the idea that they could confidently stand and allow a human to approach them, I like that piece, because my background before then was more, I would say, old school natural horsemanship before it was popularized, is that it was a different thinking. So I like kind of the fusion of the Eastern and the Western philosophies, trying to take the best of both. And so again, that's why I'm letting things, it could be smoother, but that at this point that she listens when I stop with the lunging and is waiting for what it is that we're doing next. So if all I had was this amount of time, I've accomplished a lot today, and I'm good with that. It doesn't always have to be a big lesson, the fact that she's standing here quietly and absorbing everything. She's working. This is a very sensitive, very energetic young horse, and so I've tried to be really practicing and really clear that she gets to practice and be clear about being emotionally calm and not nervous and reacting, because her nature is more of that. And so I'm pleased when she can take in all of this, because again, it's a safety feature for both of us, but also it helps me to know that she's able to make decisions when there's adversity, and it doesn't always have to be a reaction.